Oh, it's a lovely car, this is. It's lovely. I'm not really sure why I felt the need to say that this is a lovely car in a kind of weird Yorkshire accent, but it is a lovely car, that's the word for it. It's a year 2000 example of a 1999 to 2008 Jaguar S-Type, which was the mid-sized executive saloon car, which went up against cars like the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes E-Class. At that time, Jaguar was owned by Ford, and for that reason, as well as the fact that this car looked like it was built and designed in 1960, it divided opinion, shall we say. It was not a car that everybody loved, but those people that did like it, they really liked it. First thing to get out of the way is that this car, it is based on a Ford underneath, well, specifically the Lincoln LS, which was a car that they only sold over in the States. As I've said before, it's not really that important what the car is underneath, it's what is the car actually like. And I've already said that this car, it's a lovely car. It's rear wheel drive, which is good, and in this case, now only 10% of the S-Types that they sold were manual. This car is manual, and it really does work well. Mated to the 3-litre V6, which was kind of like the mid-range engine. You know, this is what they were thinking of when they built this car. It's the successor to the 1960s original Jaguar S-Type. 3-box saloon. You know, I've got engine, compartment for passengers, boot space at back. It feels like a proper Jaguar. It's got pace, it's got grace, and it's got space. Of course, it isn't without its faults. You know, it's a 24-year-old design now, and it isn't perfect, but you know, we'll get into that. So inside the car, the retro theme is very much here. There's lots of wood, there's lots of leather, there's beige, there's brown. It's a very traditionally styled interior. It's one that you might have expected to see in a car 40 or 50 years ago, but it's also a very modern interior. You know, it's got all of the modern features and things that you would want. The dials, they've got these incredibly thin needles. It just looks like a very precise instrument to tell you your speed and your RPM. The little climate control screens down here, the plasticky glass that they cover the screens with is just like super crystal clear and shiny and nice. I mean, it is a bit of a sea of beige here on the controls stack. Now this car is an early car. It's got tape deck, but it's also got the 6-disc CD changer in the boot. It's got power fold mirrors, it's got auto headlights, auto wipers, auto dim rear view mirror, it's got electrically adjustable seats, it's got dual zone climate control, a pretty rudimentary trip computer that tells you your MPG and the miles that you've done and so on a little LCD screen here. It's got parking sensors at the back. I know it's quite a long car, so that's definitely helpful, and they work perfectly on this example. I've actually got a Ford Quick Clear front screen demister, which obviously Ford were not selling to anyone else, so Jaguar were lucky enough to get that part in their car. It doesn't really work now that well, because these things never do. They end up one half not working or whatever, but they are a superb thing for winter when they do work. It's that whole thing of the cliche line of it's a pleasant place to be, but you know, as I'm blasting over these sort of very windswept and rainy Peak District hills, I feel like I'm in you know, a comfortable lounge. So the heart of the Jaguar, the engine, you could get that as a 2.5 litre V6 petrol or a 3 litre V6 petrol, which this car is. Now this has got 240 horsepower, so it's got plenty of power. It's pretty decent actually, quite surprisingly quick. You could then get it with a 4 litre or a 4.2 litre V8, depending on which year the car is. And then they introduced a 2.7 litre diesel as well. So there was plenty of engines to choose from, and they were all big and they were all powerful. It sounds nice. It's very muted, because Jaguars are not about the noise. They're not about creating a big scene. They're obviously a gentleman's cruiser. So it's a big thirsty V6. You're not going to get fantastic MPG, but you will get 30 MPG if you're driving reasonably carefully on a sort of average kind of drive. You might get 35 on a run, so it's not going to completely bankrupt you. Diesel will of course get you 40 MPG, which is much better, and the V8s, well, if you're worried about MPG with a V8, then you're buying the wrong car. The 4 litre V8 was a pretty sweet car. There's a chap, if you don't know him, on YouTube called It's Joel, and he's got one of those, and that's quite an entertaining series to watch. Now, he did buy a bit of a ropey one, so there was a few things gone wrong with it, but If you want to know a little bit more about that creamy V8 engine, then I'd highly recommend his channel. So the 4.2 S-Type R, that had 400 horsepower thanks to the addition of a supercharger and some other bits. This car feels quick enough with its 240, and that S-Type R must be a real beast. Now this of course is not a great day to be testing handling, it's wet out there, but this car, you know, it's not bad to drive. It goes around the corners well. It's quite light steering, especially at lower speeds. The steering's very light, but you know, that's good for the luxury aspect of this car in terms of being able to manoeuvre it without much effort. Of course, this car would be very well suited to an automatic, which most of them are, and I'm led to believe it's a very smooth and good, decent automatic gearbox.
The S-Type has a very plush and comfortable ride quality, a highly underrated trait in a car these days.
At speed, it's a very nicely refined car. There's not a lot of wind noise at all. There's a little bit of road noise, but not a huge amount. One problem is that you do get a few squeaks and rattles from the interior. I can hear something over there creaking away. It's not as bad as the X-Type that my dad had, which seemed to just suffer from every single possible bit of trim seemed to be creaking against itself. This car's done 82,000 miles, so it's fairly low mileage. And while I'm talking about something that I can't really quite get on with, these seats, there's something not quite right about them. They're adjustable, they're electronically adjustable. I can move them backwards and forwards. I can tilt the seat upwards like that. Even after being in this car for sort of half an hour, my legs start to feel a little bit achy. My back's not quite right because there's no lumbar support. It's got a very flat back to it, and perhaps that's just me. I don't know. You know, other people may have a different experience with these seats, but it's just something to bear in mind. I've just never quite figured out what I think of the looks of this car. Now, I really don't mind how it looks, especially now, 24 years on. I could own one of these and I'd be happy to walk back to it and drive it. But it is a bit of a weird looking car, isn't it? Certainly from some angles. They've gone for that retro style and you can really see the 60s design in it, the original S-Type. But there's just some aspects of it that are a bit odd, like the rear three quarters, the sort of banana shaped line that goes down the side. I quite like that, but at the same time it is weird, and I can see why people might think it's a little bit odd. In this sort of like minty toothpaste green, it's kind of an interesting colour. It's quite a nice colour, but it's not a colour that I would personally own, I don't think. I'd probably go for some like dark blue or something like that. There were a couple of midlife facelifts with this car. The first one was the interior, which was done in 2003, and that is certainly one to look out for because they did quite dramatically change the interior of this car. They gave it that much more traditional Jag interior, and it does look quite different, and I think I prefer it. This looks a little bit odd with its big beige section of U-shaped dashboard. And then of course they also did an exterior facelift a year later in 2004. Now the most noticeable thing to me was the rear end, where they extended the sort of silver strip all the way along the back of the boot. They also did put the Jaguar badge into the grille on the front and did just change it slightly. Let's find out from backseat JJ what it's like in the back of the Jaguar S-Type. Well, I've got my driving gloves on. I've got my gentleman's coat on. I mean, this is a gentleman's car, isn't it? So that's why I'm in this here. Gentleman, you kind of look like you're about to rob a bank. And why have you got driving gloves on? You can't even drive. Ah, there's no need for that. I could learn to drive if I wanted to. Well, quite frankly, it's lovely back here. It's full of like cream leather and wood. The piping on the seats. I've got a nice comfy leather armrest here. I've got these little light switches up here, which they feel quite nice to turn on and off. There's a little bit of ventilation in the middle. Pockets on the back of the seats. I've got little door pockets. Electric windows off of a Ford Focus. We can fit 2 6-foot people behind each other. I've got a little bit of knee room. I've got plenty of headroom. The only thing is if you're an adult sat in the middle, there's a big transmission tunnel down the centre, which will mean that your legs are like splayed either side. But you do have this adjustable headrest in the middle, so you've got headrests all the way across, which is nice. All right, thanks for that, mate. Yeah. Yeah, mate, no worries. Just think about your hurtful comments next time before you start spouting them out. Oh, yeah, fair enough, will do. Have you got an S-Type? I would really like to hear from you, because I'd love to know what you like about the car, what you don't like about the car. Do you agree with what I've said? Please do let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video. Practicality for the driver up front, it's a bit of a mixed bag actually, because it's got a very small glove box, and there's you can get like a book in there or something, and then a very narrow door pockets as well. But you've got a decent sized cup holder here that fits the fat bottom bottle no problem. So there's this square thing here which fits all your tapes in it for the tape deck, but also it's where the sat-nav would go if you'd opted for that when the car was new. A little pop-out thing here, which I can't really figure out what it's for, maybe business cards, and then there is also a little mini ashtray at the bottom, and then this centre console under the armrest as well. Now interestingly, the sun visor, which is not useful today, that has a mirror in it, and the mirror, you can actually adjust the brightness of the light that shines at you individually, and you can do it on the passenger side as well, and I don't think I've seen that on any other car. The boot is quite a good size, but it's a little bit shallow, and it means that if you really want to get a big item in there, it's quite hard to post it through the rear. You can fold the seats 60-40, so you can get your longer items in there, so it is a fairly practical car. The good news is, on the reliability and dependability front, they are actually quite well engineered cars. They're solid, and all the engines are chain driven. And now, as always, my advice to you would be try and find a good one. Try and find one with full service history, one that's had, you know, careful owners. Now, fortunately, because it's a Jaguar, you will get a lot of them available that have had careful owners that have looked after them and serviced them. This car is a very good example of one, and it's actually for sale. My friend Zach at IGM Pedigree Autos, based in Cheshire in Macclesfield, it might well still be for sale when this video comes out, and if it is, then I urge you to check him out. Now that it is obviously 24 years old, I think it has aged really well. Because it was designed to look like an old car already, it's much harder to date a car like this, and when you see one, you don't know if it's new, you don't know if it's old. It just kind of like has aged very gracefully, whereas if you look at equivalent Mercedes E-Class or BMW 5 Series or a lot of modern cars from that time, including the Lincoln LS that this car was based upon, they've obviously dated because they look of their time. It also means that, you know, you buy it now and you've got something that looks kind of different and old school and quirky and classic, and yet you've got all of the modern creature comforts that you would desire. So yeah, that's the Jaguar S-Type. If you want to see a video about another car, then please do click up there, and I will see you in the next video.